get your fist, push through, really like deep, like elbow deep through, and get to where you're able to finish the piece. So today we're going to be talking line work. Specifically the line work that took to make this thing. And to get there came from this piece of garbage. And it's hard to say that it's a piece of garbage because it's something that I spent a lot of time on trying to develop this idea into this sketch, which hopefully you saw the other one that I previously did on that one, which I talk about my thoughts that kind of went through my head while I made this sketch. And so now we're going to be talking about the thoughts that went through my head while I made this thing, which is not a sketch and is less garbage. Anyways, basic process is honestly really simple. Like, you got your sketch, you got your somewhat fully developed idea, and then define those lines. And for me, I use ink. Specifically, this, Speedball Super Black India ink. I use India ink because it's waterproof and I do watercolor. And so since I do watercolor, you want waterproof ink or else you're gonna be smudging things everywhere and then it's gonna ruin the piece and it's gonna look really bad. And you're gonna cry because you spent all this time developing a really, really cool idea and then all of a sudden it's going to be ruined. And then you feel like you wasted your time and now you gotta restart the whole thing and you feel really discouraged and you might just throw the whole piece away. I wouldn't know what that feels like ever because all my pieces come out perfectly and look great 100% of the time. Personally, I like to use a dip pen, which I have right here, and then for usability I just chucked it into this cute little jar. It's literally just like it was for sweet orange marmalade. I was given to it. It's for free from some like fancy hotel and it works really great. It's really compact and especially something of this size, like you don't need a lot of ink and I can take it anywhere if I need to, versus this big chunky boy. So yeah, materials wise, like it's super basic. Like this thing, it's probably the cheapest fountain pen you could ever find anywhere, but it works for me and I like it better than markers. I know a lot of people use fine liners for inking their pieces and there's a ton of convenience out of that because using a marker you obviously don't have to worry about constantly dipping in your pen. It's what I stick to, it's what I like. It really doesn't matter what you use, just get ink down on paper and you're good. Meanwhile, for like the actual process of getting that ink down on paper, for me it was largely just from getting a really defined pencil work in, because obviously pencil work, get that nice clean exactly where you want, then the inking process is far less stressful. Like anytime you move from part 1 to part 2, part 3, part whatever, in the process of making an artwork, it gets really difficult sometimes to like take that next step because it's just like, all right, I'm out of place. I like where this is at. Now let me do something and hopefully not ruin it. The amount of times that I've ruined the piece just moving forward, I'm like just wishing I could just undo back is a lot. And especially with watercolor, it's hard because you can't really undo things with watercolor. Like most other paints, you can just paint right on over top of it. Meanwhile, with watercolor, like you can only go darker, you can't go back, and you can ruin things real quick. And a few points I really thought I did, especially during the inking process, because frankly, I think the inking process was my least successful step in this actual piece. Overall, I think it turned out good, because if it didn't, you wouldn't be seeing this right now. The main reason I don't feel like the inking process was very successful for this one is I tried to really go heavy into my line weights a couple places. I think having variance in your line weight obviously provides a lot of context to certain parts of the piece. Specifically like around these flowers and stuff, I really tried to differentiate the petals and stuff from the different parts of the bouquet there. And so I was like, oh sweet, great way to do that, line weight. And then I got a little bit over ambitious and made them super chunky. Like right there, 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 right there. Oh, especially right there. You're gross. I hate you. Go die. As I was saying, those places are spots of failure, mistakes, which is okay in reality. Like, no piece is gonna be perfect. You can't go into you can't start a piece and expect it to come out perfectly. You're gonna hit road bumps. You're gonna hit problems you didn't expect, and things are going to go wrong. Hopefully not terribly wrong, but wrong enough that you're gonna see it and be like, man, I wish that didn't happen. But luckily this was a case where I pushed through that feeling, like just really gotta like push right through it, get your fist really like deep, like elbow deep through, and hopefully by the end everyone's happy. Am I gonna include that? I shouldn't. So whenever I did get to those points where I saw how thick those lines were and how much I just really hated seeing them, I was like, maybe this is a point of no return. Maybe I should honestly just like throw this out and start again. Like, I'm not that far in. I still have my sketch. I know where I'm going for with this, and like there's not too much line work. That bouquet was by far the most intricate line work I've done in a long time, and halfway through it I was like, man, is this really worth it? I didn't give up. I got through it. I finished up the rest of the piece even after I saw those petals, and I was like, all right, well, maybe this isn't so bad. And I kept working through, and I figured hopefully this will be a small enough part of the piece that once I throw in all the colors and get through the painting process, it won't be as big a deal. And in reality, it wasn't. I think that's a part where I really struggle with a lot of art, is that I give up on a piece too early, or I just don't work it enough. For a lot of things, especially watercolor, you can overwork to a degree. And I tend to have the opposite problem where I'm just like, I get stuck and lost and don't know what more to do. And so it's just underworked. And so a large part of that actually came from just doing a lot more research and pushing through that way. Another major part where I didn't realize what I needed to do next was the head of the bird. In my initial sketch, it really wasn't very developed. It was very plain, it was very flat looking. It was just boring to look at. I can't have the head of a bird be super just plain. Like, this is a major focal point of this piece. And so I needed to do more with it. And so whenever it came finally to the inking, I went into it and I worked it more. I made it kind of more grizzled, more rough. I gave it a tone to it that was really lacking before. And I think it really helped. It worked exceptionally well compared to what I had before. And I'm really happy with how that part came out, actually. But again, that came from having a part that wasn't worked up enough, looking through for some inspiration, and then just kind of keep pushing through it to make something that's actually better and much more interesting to look at. The inking process for this piece was a lot of lessons learned, but you know, that's kind of a lot of art, and why I'm kind of doing these recordings is to think about what I did during those pieces, how to improve, and hopefully take those lessons learned into the next one and make even better art in the future. So, curiosity, what's your inking tool of choice? What do you do? And hopefully I can take all these lessons learned and actually apply them to the next one.